Welcome back to Marathon Money Inside the Ticker. Man, we got Saga Metals on here. Mike, who's the CEO. I've done a lot of research on this company and I really, really like it. What they have going is probably with their radar, with their titanium, their partners. I think they're a really up and coming company and they have a great leader. But I'll let Mike take it from there. I think Saga Metals is probably up and coming and has a lot of room to run. And you probably want to listen to this.
Thanks for having me on, Kenny. Pleasure speaking with you today.
It's good. So, man, let's start with the radar project. Let's start with that. Let's get into that. I know you have partnerships. We'll definitely get in that. There's other tiers we want to get into, but tell me.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to that we're a diversified critical mineral company, right? So, you're kind of alluding to the fact that we've got lots to talk about, and that would be the reason why we're not just a single asset company. We do have multiple assets of great potential, and we're moving them forward kind of in tandem here.
Yeah, so you guys have like four different avenues. To me, you guys like got four different ways to make revenue. And I know when we talked off here, it's like even one of the revenues I considered you have even multiple ways to make revenues in there. And I really want to talk about like the radar project which is kind of like your biggest thing going right now. So tell me all about that and how you guys are going to like really turn that into like a cash flow for the business.
Yeah, I mean, of course, cash flow always comes in time. We are a junior exploration company, still in its development stage, but the radar project is a titanium, vanadium, iron layered mafic intrusion. The deposit model is actually called a vanadiferous titanomagnetite style deposit, or VTM. So if you see that a lot in our news releases or social media and stuff like that, I just want to highlight what that means. And so we've got about just over 24,000 hectares on the southeastern coast of Labrador, about 10 kilometers away from the town of Cartwright. So we benefit from exceptional infrastructure. We've got road access right into our highest mineralized zones. We've got an amazing community support. At most times, about 70% of our exploration team is made up of members of the local community. We've got nearby access to Deepwater Port, an airstrip, hydroelectric power. So just lots of things going for us at this early stage of development, and some big catalysts coming up for us heading into kind of the remainder of Q4 here and into next year is going to be getting into our indicated mineral resource estimate.
Can you speak on that mineral resource estimate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about that and what you expect from it.
Yeah, for sure. And so just to kind of give a bit of context for everyone, we did a maiden 2,200 meter drill program earlier this year. Very successful. We identified the oxide layering that we were going after. That was situated in the Hawkeye zone, which is on kind of the more central area of the property. And now kind of moving to the west, we've got this oxide layering strike that almost resembles a bit of a horseshoe, kind of dipping down to the south and then hooking back up to the west. And so we now find ourselves in the Trapper zone. And so we anticipate this to be a much larger, thicker, it's already confirmed to be much more magnetic. So we just think this is a much more robust area, already confirmed with geophysics, with grab samples, soil samples, things like that. We've done 3 trenches over about 3 kilometer strike in the Trapper zone. So we're already highly confident to go in there and drill it and put our indicated resource on this section of the property. So success for us really heading into 2026 is going to be putting that 43101 compliant technical report out there and just confirming to everyone, the true size of this project.
I know like titanium and iron is like a big global transition of like green energy. Do you think your company is going to be able to capitalize that by like 2032? Because that's where they're saying like significant growth is going to be in like North America. Is going to be like huge, where like the industry is going to be around $30 billion. So where do you see yourself controlling at least some of that market share?
Yeah, I mean, that we definitely endeavor and aim to do that, right? We do think that with the fact that we are seeing mineralization at surface, this of course is setting up the stage for an open pit mineable situation. The fact that we are looking at such a large intrusion right near the coast, I think that China, Russia, these countries dominate titanium and vanadium exportation, right? And Europe, Western nations, North America, South America, we need to shore up our supplies of titanium, vanadium over here. And so I do think with what we're uncovering on the property and what we endeavor to show everyone over the next 6, 12, 24 months, I think we're going to prove that we have what it takes to be a contributor to these supply chains.
So when you get these metals, who are the customers? How you guys are moving them to create revenue?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, and maybe just to back up, I think that, for us as a company, we specialize in finding these early stage projects where nobody's looking. Michael Garrigan's our chief geological officer, comes from an exceptional family of geologists. It's really been his guidance and due diligence in, finding these projects, and his thesis around Labrador being completely underexplored and overlooked. That's kind of where we find ourselves to be the most successful. And so we're going to continue to de-risk and move this project forward. But at the end of the day, it's not to say that we will necessarily be the company that puts this into production and into revenue. I think that for us, maximizing shareholder value would be finding one of these bigger companies that's well entrenched in the supply chain of titanium, vanadium, and iron to come along, and take us out and put it into their ecosystem, their supply chain, and move things along. So, America, as an example, is a major manufacturer of end-use titanium products. And at the end of the day, they America imports over 90% of their feedstock into their supply chain. So they need more of this on the North American side. They can't rely on things coming out of, Asia and the Middle East and Russia.
So it's going to be a big benefit for you because you guys are out in Canada and you guys got a big facility and you guys are diversified in 4 different minerals. So North America is like really prime market for you guys. So discovering a big project and maybe partner up with somebody that can put it all together for you is really where you're going to put where shareholders are going to see the most value from your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, we're not stuck in the middle of nowhere. As I mentioned before, we're right on the coast. So for us to be able to get this material onto a cargo ship and head out into the Atlantic Ocean and down either into Tracy Sorel Complex in Quebec for processing or down into the United States for processing, there's lots of different avenues and options for us and for a major company to come in and be a part of that.
So can we talk about the Rio, that partnership or agreement you have with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we first set up Saga Metals back in 2023, one of the original projects that we picked up was some ground in the eastern part of James Bay, primarily looking at lithium. Shortly after we had staked the initial ground there, Rio Tinto had done a deal with a couple companies, Azimuth and Midland, garnering some pretty sizable ground throughout James Bay. And so as we kind of started to get on the property, the space in this eastern part of James Bay started to fill up with some other major companies. And so we started to have some early success in finding anomalous mineralization across a fairly sizable strike, about 9 kilometers in 2 of our zones on the legacy property. And when we, garnered that information, we put a data room together And we just started reaching out to some of these other companies that were a long strike from us in this eastern part, and one of them being Rio Tinto. And just given the size of our project at that time being 34,000 hectares, now our combined contiguous land is now sitting at 65,000 hectares. Not to mention the potential and anomalous mineralization that we were seeing on the project. We were able to garner their attention, and fast forward 6 months from there, we did a deal with them, and 3 months after that, we went public. So I think at the end of the day, it's been a great just show of management's ability to execute on these deals with these larger companies, and kind of just is maybe foreshadowing of what we're capable with the Radar project and some of our other assets.
So how long is this agreement with them? It's $44 million. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct. So it's a $44 million option agreement whereby Rio Tinto can earn up to 75% of the project. So it's based out of stages. So within the first 4 years, they have to spend just under $10 million to earn 51% of that project. And then they've got another 5 years to spend about $34 million to earn that full 75%. Plus, there's some cash payments they've made to us. So far to date, we've received about $500,000 in non-dilutive cash from Rio Tinto.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what you guys is there already a plan in place? I know you're the leader of the company. What is the plan in place? Is this going to go towards growth of the company and trying to see where you guys can build and expand?
Yeah, you're talking about that additional capital that
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. That so essentially having Rio Tinto be the operator of our lithium asset in Quebec has allowed us to focus on our projects in Labrador, namely the Radar project as well as our uranium project that sits about 150 kilometers away. And so we've been able to garner that additional capital and put that into the ground, and it's really helped us get some additional data sets on these two assets.
The uranium, how big is that project for you guys? How big is the runway revenue wise for the uranium?
Yeah, at the end of the day, like I think that over the next 3 to 5 years, you're really going to see demand outstrip supply for uranium. I think today I didn't look it up this morning, but it's been hovering around $80 a pound for uranium oxide. And I think that we're going to start to see that creep back up to that $100 range that we saw, earlier in the year, and potentially head, closer to $120, $140 a pound. And I think once you start to see that trend upwards, our uranium project being a little bit more early stage, will start to garner, the interest and attention for us to be able to move that forward in a meaningful way. That project sits about 25 to 30 kilometers south of Paladin Energy. They've got their major Michelin project. I think it's second or third in line in terms of their development stage. It has about, at minimum, about 128 million pounds of uranium on the property. And so the big difference here, though, is that it's not Athabasca-based uranium. That's pretty much an anomaly on the planet. Most of the other uranium projects, whether it be South America, South Africa, Australia, kind of sit in more of this, lower grade range, but with very high or large tonnage potential. And so that's where we find ourselves with our Double Mare project, which sits, just between the Double Mare Inlet and Lake Melville, which is essentially tidewater. Again, it feeds out into the Atlantic Ocean. So two projects with great access as far as cargo ships are concerned, and we've got an 18-kilometer prospective strike. It's confirmed with uranium count radiometrics, sample grades up to 0.43% uranium oxide. We've got an 8 to 10 person winterized camp that's fully refurbished and ready to go, and it in and of itself is drill ready. So we're really primed and ready for when uranium starts to hit big, which could start again here as early as 2026.
Why do you why do you think it's gonna go up to like 120 uranium? How much is what is it like? How do they measure? Like it's 1 pound of uranium is 120, and what's the average? Like oil is like a barrel.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we got a pound of uranium. Was like who are the customers that are getting this? Who are the disappointed to? Because I see that uranium's at $80. So if you guys have a big piece, can get yourself a big piece of that, and you guys are early stages, how big is the potential for your company to acquire a big market share?
Yeah, again, I think at the end of the day, where it kind of fits into that, or why do I think uranium is going to kind of bump up here in the short term, really comes around just the new age that we find ourselves, and that's AI based, right? I mean, for all these major companies to be utilizing AI in the way that we are, and these massive data centers, and even with Bitcoin and these mining operations and all the rest of it, we need more clean energy, efficient, cost-effective energy, to be able to advance and move these things forward. And that's where uranium comes in. You've got 3 Mile Island in the United States that is being brought back online. Arguably one of the largest nuclear disasters in North American history, and now it's coming back online. You've got small modular or SMR technology that's been significantly advanced in kind of the more recent years, and so at the end of the day, we need to bring more of this online. There's always situations like I think it was Kazatomprom that announced, maybe it was a few quarters ago, that they had production shortfalls, and there was just issues at the mining operation and things like that. Like, there's always going to be those situations where there's production shortfalls, or just not enough supply already in the system. And with all of this demand forthcoming with AI in these data centers, it's just kind of inevitable that your supply demand, it just is not going to catch up, right? And so that's kind of where I think we find ourselves in a situation where, if we can prove that within our property we have 50, 100 plus million pounds of uranium, then we can be a significant contributor to the supply chain.
Maybe I missed it, but how do you know? Do you know, or do you don't know you have 100 million pounds of uranium, or is it like still needs to find out?
Yeah, I can't say right now that we know. I'm just saying that we have the potential to find out. It's a property that's worth investigating. It's a property that's worth drilling. We've got Dr. Al Miller, who's a petrologist. He actually works on both our uranium and our radar titanium vanadium property. He's done the work under the microscope, cutting thin sections of our rock samples from the uranium property, confirming that there's uraninite in the pegmatites. We've got uranophane staining, which is essentially the oxidization of uranium minerals, showing on surface across all of the pegmatites along this 18-kilometer strike. So again, we've got all the right ingredients. We still have to prove it out. We still have to drill it. All that's to come. But if there ever was a project, that I thought had great potential, I think this one does.
I hear you, and I'm with you 100% on the uranium. When do you guys think you're going to start drilling?
Again, our focus really is on the radar titanium vanadium property right now. But again, with being a diversified critical mineral company and having multiple assets, the thesis again was on Labrador, right? Being underexplored, overlooked. And I'm coming back to that because I want people to realize that we weren't chasing commodities. We didn't pick up a project in Labrador and then one down in South America and one over, in Australia or things like that. We're not globe trotting, trying to organize different projects. Like, we have these 4 projects all centralized within a very close proximity of one another. So for us to even advance the radar project and then maybe do a drill program in the uranium project 9 months from now, we can very cost effectively move that forward. Whether, we finish drilling at the radar project and then we mobilize teams over to the uranium project, which would take about a day to get everything over to that project, given how close it is. We can just do it very efficiently and just make sure that we're maximizing, shareholder dollars and really driving value for the company. And so, kind of coming back though, our radar project, and the reason why that one is kind of our flagship is just because it's so undeniable. Like the information that we've been able to garner on that project every single year, starting in 2023, when we first stepped foot on the project, has been phenomenal. And it's just been undeniable. And every time we've been able to inch forward and move the size of our oxide layering strike. At first we thought maybe it was 4 kilometers. Now we think it's 20 plus kilometers. We own the entire 160 square kilometer intrusion, which even in its own right is something that is kind of unheard of in the exploration stage of a junior company. More often than not, when you have an intrusion that's especially of this size, you're jostling for positions with other companies. But we've been able to garner the entire thing. And so we're able to really drive forward and prove this thing out.
So this radar project is next year, or as an investor, is next year, am I going to start seeing major results from the radar project? Because I know you guys are seeing major results now, but
Correct.
End of the year, quarter 1, quarter 2, what do you expect as the leader? What are you going to see?
Yeah. So, again, yes, I definitely think that within that time period, we're going to start to see a significant bump in our understanding of this project. Like we already know that it's there. Again, it's kind of determining the size. It's doing this 15,000 meter drill program, coming out with not an inferred, but an indicated mineral resource right off the hop. And just proving the level of tonnage that's within just a 3 kilometer strike of our, inferred 20 kilometers. We're looking to prove continuity in many aspects, continuity in the thickness of our oxide layer, continuity in the grades from what we're seeing in the Trapper Zone to what we saw in the Hawkeye Zone earlier this year. And just proving that the 16 kilometer strike that goes from the Hawkeye Zone and wraps underneath and around up to the Trapper Zone is in fact one continuous oxide layering strike. Those are all important factors that we're hoping to achieve here with this next drill program. And it is really what's forming the basis of all of the exciting news that we have to come from, not only the rest of this year, but heading into next year.
So you're saying like your biggest catalyst would probably be the radar projects coming in next year, future, like more close to, you're seeing uranium getting a bump up to like 120, and you guys think you guys might have a big site of maybe 100 million pounds of uranium. But what about iron and lithium? Like what are those plans for that, and titanium?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, the radar project actually does host iron. So it's a titanium, vanadium, iron layered mafic intrusion. And so there already is a fairly significant component of iron to that.
Yes.
And so the nice thing again about the radar project, and, sort of comparable to some of the other projects out there, is that it's not just a titanium asset. It's an asset that has 3 potential revenue streams from a single, exploration project.
And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, right? Because I remember we talked about it had multiple revenue streams, and just the radar project.
Just in this project alone. So, and it's not like, it's like a minor byproduct component to it. Like it would be significant components in all 3 aspects of titanium, vanadium, and iron, if we prove it out and it's able to advance forward. We do have another iron project up in the Labrador Trough. Vale came in and did a $138 million deal with Cyclone, earlier this year. And so kind of brought some renewed interest and enthusiasm into that area. Just near Shefferville there. There's railway access that kind of runs right back down to Labrador City. So again, in terms of being able to move things forward, that was always an important aspect for us, was finding these projects with some level of infrastructure to be able to advance them forward. I mean, Labrador is pretty famous for the Voisey's Bay discovery by Diamond Fields and Robert Friedland back in the mid-90s. It's pretty north up in Labrador and pretty remote. The odds of making that level of discovery with that level of remoteness in this day and age is kind of an uphill battle that, I'm not sure a lot of people are up for. And so having that level of infrastructure on these projects, again, just super important and critical, and has really been able to just help us very early de-risk these projects and really drive the gathering of information a lot faster and in a lot more meaningful and cost-effective way. Like anytime you're dealing with these remote areas, especially in the early stage, it just costs so much to get in there. You're spending more on a helicopter to travel in, minimal time on site. You come out with a few rocks and off you go. Whereas, even in 2023, when we first stepped foot on the radar project, we had claim maintenance to do in the realm of around $75,000, but we came out with hundreds of rock samples and a massive data set of information that really set the stage for the following years of exploration. So again, it just really highlights how important infrastructure is.
So why do you think the retail investors should buy the stock?
At the end of the day, I think for someone to take a look at Saga Metals and decide to become a shareholder is just the potential that we have. I think that we've got great potential across 4 different assets. We've got our partnership with Rio Tinto. Again, a lot of this comes down to junior exploration companies and, who's the management team, like what's their capability. And I think we've shown that when we say we're going to do something, we go and do it and we execute and we advance these projects. And I do think that we're currently undervalued, and we're really excited to advance the radar project here in the near term and just show people how large this project truly is.
So I'm gonna tell you what makes me excited. The radar project has multiple revenue streams in it. Your uranium. Yeah, it seems like you guys are very knowledgeable about that. I think that is a undervalued asset you guys have. When that gets started, I truly believe you're probably going to be reining in. If your geologists have that type of talent to find hundreds of million pounds of uranium. I do like the fact that, a well-established company has given you a partnership like that of $44 million. Because you guys did go public, in 2024 on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct. And that was about three months after we did the deal with Rio Tinto. So we still were a private company at that time.
Yeah. So it kind of shows me that if they see something and they're willing to put the money behind it like that, that means that something's there. And I think us as retail investors should really take a look deeper. And I like companies that do what they said. I like the way you operate. I like how you investigate. I like how you talk about your team. And I think you really have a great potential here because, with so many different revenues, you guys are focused on the radar project. The radar project has 3 different revenues inside. I personally think that project next year, I definitely would be looking out for. Yeah. Besides that, man, is there anything else you can tell us as investors that when we buy the stock, what are we looking out for? What should we pay attention to besides the radar project you guys are coming out with?
Yeah, you know what? Again, we're a pretty communicative company. We try to put out a lot of news and just keep everyone well informed. At the end of the day, we've got the final preparations of our camp and our core shack and just all the logistics for this upcoming drill program are all currently happening right now as we speak. The drilling contractor is going to be heading on site in early November, and that drill is going to start turning, and it's not going to stop. until we've got this mineral resource estimate done. And so, I really do think that that's what investors or prospective shareholders need to look out for, is just that continuous news flow of everything going on in that project. And, again, we've got our ear to the ground, and we're keeping up on what's happening with the different commodities within the assets that we have. And we'll continue to advance and move those projects just in the context of the market, and make sure that in every instance, we're finding ways to maximize shareholder value and try to reach that in the capital market.
Man, Mike, I appreciate you coming on the show. I really, really, really like it. I think you really have something here. I think a lot of retail investors can see it. I really like the breakdown.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to coming back on in a few months and being able to give you a pretty big update.
Man, I'm looking for it. I'm definitely looking for an update on this. I know, like, this kind of introduction show, like, get people to know who you are, but the second and third shows is where we really see what you've done and get people behind you, because you do have something here. You do really truly have something here, and I hope we get to see a lot of execution in the next couple of months. And I'll definitely be paying attention. A lot of people I know who sent out a lot of their questions, definitely gonna be paying attention. So thank you for coming on.
Appreciate that. Thank you.